All right, in this explainer, we're diving into just one single sentence of theology, but it's a sentence that some believe is basically a divine cheat code, one that completely rewrites the rules for the game of life. Okay, so picture this. You log into the most immersive RPG you can possibly imagine, life itself. But right away, you realize something's off. The game is rigged. The rules were set thousands of years ago, and you start out with this massive penalty before you've even made a single move.
So, what happened? Well, in a lot of theological systems, a very early player named Adam basically glitched the whole game. And because of that, every player since, yep, that means you, starts with a guilty status, and this permanent debuff, you're being held responsible for a mistake you had absolutely nothing to do with.
This whole concept has a name, and you've probably heard it: original sin. It was really popularized by St. Augustine, and it's this idea that you inherit the spiritual baggage of an ancestor's choice. You start life already in the red. But what if there was a cheat code? You know, a way to just reset the whole game to its factory settings so every single player gets a fair start? Well, for members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, that fix, that cheat code, is found in a really simple, direct statement right from their foundational beliefs. It's their second article of faith, and you can think of it as a kind of spiritual declaration of independence. It just severs that chain of inherited guilt, and in doing so, it completely reframes your starting point in life. And this really highlights the huge difference, right? On one hand, with original sin, you're born flawed. You're starting at level -100. But with this doctrine, you're born as a clean slate, totally whole, ready to start at level 0. It's a massive shift from inherent guilt to inherent freedom.
Okay, so let's really dig into this, because if you're not punished for what Adam did, well, then you have to completely reevaluate his choice, don't you?
I mean, was Adam some kind of villain who just wrecked the game for everybody? Or was he something else? Because this doctrine suggests he was actually the hero, making a really necessary strategic move. So in this view, the Garden of Eden wasn't paradise lost. It was more like a tutorial zone, super safe but stagnant. You can't level up. To actually progress, humanity had to leave the tutorial and enter the main game. So Adam deliberately broke a lower law to fulfill a higher one, and that one act enabled the entire human experience. In fact, an early church leader, Brigham Young, taught, quote, "The Lord knew they would do this, and he had designed that they should." This whole idea is called the fortunate fall. See, it wasn't a tragic mistake, it was a totally essential step forward. So it makes no sense to be punished for the very act that gave us the chance to exist and, play the game at all. All right, so let's follow this logic a little further, because it builds into this universal benefit, something that applies to every single person, no matter what they do. 100%. That's the percentage of humanity that gets the gift of resurrection, according to this doctrine. No exceptions. It's like an unconditional buff that gets applied to every single player. And the logic here is actually pretty simple. An early apostle, Orson Pratt, he argued that since we didn't cause death to enter the world, it's not our job to overcome it. So Christ's atonement unconditionally reverses that effect for everyone. The punishment part, that only kicks in for your own personal actions. Okay, so if you're not on the hook for Adam and resurrection is a freebie for everyone, then when does your personal responsibility finally kick in? Well, in this theology, there's a key number, and that number represents something called the age of accountability. The teaching is that before this age, children are literally incapable of sin. They're protected by what some early leaders even described as a kind of spiritual force field of innocence. But after that, the training wheels come off, and your choices are your own. And all of this leads to the core psychological impact of this whole belief system. It's really designed to be this profound source of confidence, of personal power. See, instead of being taught that you're born broken or there's something inherently wrong with you, this doctrine teaches that you are born with divine potential. You're not a mistake. You're a God in embryo, a favorite term of early leaders. You're just at the beginning of your development. But here's the catch. There's always a catch, right? With great freedom comes great responsibility. That second half of the cheat code sentence, it pivots right from divine grace straight to your personal agency. So when you boil it all down, this doctrine isn't trying to make life easy. It's designed to make it fair. You're not a victim of history. You're not some kind of mistake. You are a free agent, and you are fully accountable for the path you choose to walk. Your ultimate fate? It's not determined by something an ancestor did thousands of years ago.
It's determined by the choices you and you alone make from this moment forward. You are the player at the controls.
And that's the really empowering, but also deeply challenging question this whole idea leaves you with. If your journey is yours and yours alone, with no one else to blame and no one else to credit, what will you build with it?